So let's spend a little time exploring Newton's first law. First law we don't have to do too much quantitative with because really the second law is the quantitative expression of the first law. Let's just talk about the first law, law of inertia, also called the law of inertia. And why is it called the law of inertia? Well, an object will travel at a constant velocity, will travel in a straight line at a constant speed, unless a net force is exerted on it. What does that mean? Well, let's just think about what that means. If I roll a ball along the floor, or I'm playing lacrosse and I throw a ball towards the goal and it rolls along and it hits the ground and it rolls along and it comes to a stop. Why does it come to a stop? It comes to a stop because of friction, right? If there was no friction, it would keep going. Let's say that you going around a turn in a car. Going around a turn in a car. What happens when you go around a turn in a car too fast? When you go around a turn in a car too fast, you slip out of that turn, right? You start going in a straight line. In the absence of enough forces, or in the absence of forces, you're going to go in a straight line. Imagine all of a sudden, you're going around a turn in a car. There you are, going around a turn in a car, and all of a sudden, there is no friction. Your motor cuts out, and there is no friction. Do you just stop? No. What happens in the absence of all forces, you will just keep going in a straight line. Okay. Let me see. What happens if you set your phone on a table and it's not going anywhere? What happens to it? It'll sit there, right? It'll sit there. It's not going to go anywhere until a net force is exerted on it. Like, what's the tendency of all these bodies have a tendency to want to stay in a constant velocity. That's what the first law talks about, is they have a tendency to want to stay in a constant velocity. If you take away all the forces, they're going to do what they were doing to begin with. So the ball that was rolling along the lacrosse field is going to keep going until you exert a force on it, until somebody picks it up or until friction stops it. The car is going to not go around the curve. It's just going to go in a straight line if there's no friction between the wheels and the road in order to make it go anywhere. It's going to keep going in a straight line. The phone is going to stay sitting on the table unless you exert a net force on it. That's what the first law talks about. Each of these objects has a tendency to stay at a constant velocity. That's its tendency. And an object's tendency to stay at a constant velocity, an object's tendency to stay still if it is starting out still, or an object to stay, moving if it's, starting out moving, is due to the fact that it has inertia. That object has inertia. So what is inertia? Newton's first law, known as law of inertia. What is inertia? Inertia is a physics term that we have to define. Inertia is the tendency of a body to keep its motion. That is the actual tendency of a body to keep its motion. That is the actual definition of inertia. You have inertia, right? What happens when you wake up in the morning? You're in bed. You don't want to get out of bed. Your inertia is keeping you there. The tendency of you wanting to stay there. Well, that's both psychological and physical, right? Everything has inertia. But what is the physical property of a body that gives it inertia? So again, I gave the example of you being in bed, and that was more of a joke because it's both psychological and physical. But what is the physical property that gives a body inertia? That is mass. What do we mean by that? So that is the actual physical property that gives a body inertia. It's the body's mass. The fact that you have mass, the fact that your phone has mass, the fact that the ball has mass, and the fact that the car has mass means that they have inertia. But what do we mean by the physical property that gives a body inertia is mass? Mass is inertia. Mass is the physical. Two words aren't coming to me. This the physical thing that gives you inertia. What it means is that it's harder to start to change the motion of a body with more mass, right? Because remember, inertia is the tendency of a body to keep its motion. And the higher the mass, the harder it is, the bigger the force you have to exert to change its motion, right? Tendency of your body to keep its motion. So in order to change its motion, you got to exert a force on it. But the bigger the mass, the harder it is to change its motion. It's harder, right? Think about if somebody throws you a ball at 20 miles an hour, or somebody is driving at you at 20 miles an hour. Which one of those would you rather be in front of? Right? Which one? The ball. I mean, yes, you can joke about it, but it's the ball. Because why? Because the ball is easier to stop than the car. Car coming at you 20 miles an hour, you're going to get out of the way. Ball coming at you at 20 miles an hour, you can stop it. Right? Why is it easier to stop? Because it has a smaller inertia. Why does it have a smaller inertia? Wait, so it has a smaller inertia. It's easier to change its motion. Why does it have a smaller inertia? It has a smaller inertia because it has a smaller mass. Mass is inertia.